right, now, talking about issues, though, that are very current at the moment. Over the weekend, you might have become aware, and certainly Australia is in foment, and we talked about it with our Australian correspondent last week, Jackie Lane, that Australia's leaders will convene an emergency meeting, an emergency cabinet meeting, I believe that's today or tomorrow, to tackle violence against women after mass marches in Australia across the weekend. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says that he will hold, a National Cabinet meeting on Wednesday, that's right, to address the issue, after he joined demonstrators in Canberra yesterday, alongside the Australian Minister for Women, Katie Gallagher, and the Social Services Minister, Amanda Rishworth, in protest, in essence, that 27, I said 24, it's 27 women have allegedly died by male violence so far in 2024 in Australia. And they include the 5 women killed in a stabbing attack at the Westfield shopping mall in Bondi Junction earlier this month. Those rallies across Australia included an estimated 15,000 people. They were all suggesting that women in Australia are in danger, and in specific in danger from men. And you will see a lot more on this, obviously. There is a perception across there, and Jackie Lane, who I regard as a relatively reasonable correspondent and a reasoned woman, said, well, you can't put it all to one side. There is an attitude that Australian males have. But does that same attitude exist in New Zealand? And are the same issues that are currently flaming their way across Australia exist here? To talk to us about that, the Chief Executive Officer of Women's Refuge New Zealand, Ange Dury, joins us. Ange, welcome to the show. Good morning to you.
Hi, Michael. Thanks for having me on.
No, not a problem. First of all, before we talk about the issue in general, I'm interested in Women's Refuge and how it exists in 2024 now. You were a very prominent organisation 10, 15 years ago. I don't hear a lot of you now. I'm assuming, like all NGOs, you struggle for money. Have I got that right?
I think we're actually in better shape than we were 10, 15 years ago, Michael.
Okay. Why do you say that?
We've forged a really good, solid over the last few years.
Ange, we can't hear you. Your line's really bad.
Sorry.
I'm going to put you back to... could you sort that out for me, please? Good on you. Thanks. So we'll just get Ange back on a better line. And this is pretty representative of just the conversation we've had. I feel really sorry for Henry, how delusional about what his interpretation of free speech is, his way or the highway. Wake up, New Zealand, says Ron. And Dennis says, Michael, the interview you just had with Henry Broadbent shows that a lot of young people today have not been taught critical thinking. No, you're absolutely right. That is true. And Brett said it would be condemning Labour and the Greens as genocidal maniacs because a communist attended their gatherings, Michael. Yes, it would be. And Michael, university culture cultivated and developed bright people, but now has written off common sense. It's not so much worth a brass razoo anymore. The normal man in the street has more common sense, says John. Well, I'm sure that's true. Mind you, it might all have been true all the way along the line. Ange, you're back to us. I hope you've got a better line.
I am.
That's much better.
Is that a bit better?
1,000 times better. That's good. Okay, you're in a better position than you were 10 or 15 years ago. That's good. So I assume that you do what you usually do, which is advocate for women and also provide practical assistance to women who have been in very straitened and unfortunate domestic circumstances, yeah?
Yep, that's our core business.
How many women's refuges are there throughout New Zealand?
We've got 41 within our organisation, and there's about another 12 to 15 that sit outside of the national collective. Right.
So the question I guess I would be asking, in fact, I think I might have asked you this question before, is are things better or worse in terms of violence against women in this country over the last, say, 12, 15 years?
A lot of it is same old. Some things just never seem to change. What we have seen in recent years is some of the violence has become a little more extreme. Worse sort of behaviour. Some of that's been helped along by things like meth and the ability to track people via technology these days, which wasn't a big feature a few years back, but it certainly is now.
So you mean somebody who's a sort of a vengeful stalker or ex can now actually finds it much easier to find their partner who might have fled them?
Yeah, much easier, yeah.
Can I ask you a question, Ange, and you'd know it? What sort of men commit the kind of violence against women that requires them to flee to you?
Any sort of man, Mike. Any sort of man. This isn't an issue that discriminates across social demographics. All men and some women are certainly capable of the sort of violence that we're talking about. It's not confined to any one particular type.
Yes, I hear that argument, but I don't agree with you, Ange. Not all men do commit violence. So to suggest that all men are capable of, that's a bit wrong, isn't it?
No, I don't think it is. We can't define precisely what it is that causes some men to behave the way they do.
Well, isn't it the next course of action you'd go, because you'd like to find out why those men do that and get to those men really early? I mean, I would have thought that's a good critical intervention strategy.
One of the things that is being tried at the moment is with the national strategy to combat this, okay? And one of the major planks of that plan is prevention. And when we're talking about prevention, we're talking about prevention that happens before harm, not harm reduction, but prior to any violence. Now, that sort of thing is going to require a significant attitude change. There are still a distressingly large number of people across our country who consider control of women and punishment of partners for perceived or actual wrongdoing as acceptable. And until we get that attitude shifted.
But there are those people, but then I would suggest to you, and just the numbers would suggest, that the majority of men, the vast majority of men, don't consider that kind of action to be acceptable.
Thank Christ for that.
Well, but you see, the problem is it alienates men who feel very strongly that they don't do that they're accused of being capable of that. It's a bit like saying that every man is a potential rapist. It's not true.
Oh, no, it's certainly not true, Michael. And if that's what you were taking from what I was saying, that's unfortunate. It's not what I meant at all.
Okay, all right, we've clarified that. That's good. All right.
What I am saying though is that all of us have a responsibility here. You know, when we are seeing things that aren't okay, we frequently just look away. When we see things like that happening in our families, we tend to look away. When we can't keep looking away, we actually have to be intervening much quicker, much earlier, particularly with our young men.
Yep. Now, the other thing that we've also noticed just recently, and I don't know if it's a recent thing or we're just starting to talk about it, is domestic violence against men as well, and some women being involved in that as well. Has that always been there, or are we just living in a more violent society where some women accept that beating up, killing their partner is acceptable too?
I don't think it's new, and I've never been one to say that this is a pure men versus women argument, it'd be naive of me to think that there aren't women out there who are violent. And what you're talking about is true. We have seen far more high-profile instances in recent times.